There was a family had lived in Hetland, and they moved out to Washington, to Seattle, and leased a big house there and took in room and boarders. And so I got to stay there. They knew, the people that I rode with knew them, and so they stopped there so I stayed there with them there for a couple of years, I guess. And I was making money. I got a job within a week after I got there. The other kids had been looking for work all the time, and I looked out. I got a job washing cars and parking cars in graveyard shift for $19 a week, which was unheard of. Mine, that was a lot of money. I saved money, and pretty soon I was able to buy a car. One night, a couple of girls came in the garage there where we were working, and they had an old 1930 little coupe, a V8 coupe. And the thing was leaking water terribly. It was hot, steaming, and they wanted to have some water put in the radiator there so they could make it on a little further. And one of the girls, they were school teachers. Anyway, one of them said, "Do you think anybody would want to buy this thing?" She says, "We'd like to sell it." So when the other guy asked, "What do you want for it?" "Well, about $75. And so they said, "Well, we'll think about it." So I got their address. So it didn't look like too bad to buy, $75 for a car. So even though it was in bad shape, So we bought it. I bought it for $75. I was in the money by that time. So I took the thing apart and took the radiator out of it and took down to a radiator shop and had the thing repaired for $2.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And put it back together, and it just ran fine. That whole thing, the speedometer, the peg would only go over to 90. And the needle would stop, because it couldn't go any further. It had a peg there. I could make it go that far. And the thing would really go. Anyway, then I had wheels so I could come down to Salem and visit. If it was a visit Grace.
Now, where did they live in Salem?
They lived here in West Salem.
Oh,
yeah. In fact, he started the first bus line that started from West Salem to Salem. He bought an old 1-ton school bus and converted the thing to a bus, and took the seats, fixed the seats so he could make a bus out of it.
Wow.
And ran the thing, I don't know, every so often.
So that was Marshall?
That was Marshall. I've got a picture in there somewhere of him. And he ran that thing for a couple of years, I think. That was the only public communication between West Salem and Salem.
Oh, yeah.
And so
now could you tell us about the judge that you met up in Seattle?
What?
The judge in Seattle?
Judge?
Remember the judge who got you?
You mean in Seattle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I was working there, and in that garage there, parking cars, and I got an extra job on the side, chauffeuring for an old judge, a retired judge. And one day, I would take him downtown to get his cigars. He smoked Havanas. They cost 50 cents a piece. It was a lot of money. And one day he says, "I know a few of the guys around town. If you wondered if I would want to try to get a different job, better job than just washing cars." I said, "Well, I'd like to go to Boeing's if I could get a job at Boeing's." That was in the early 40s, and 39, I guess, about 40. And he said, "I know some of the guys out there on the board there at Boeing's." So about a week later, he asked me if I had heard from Boeing's. And I said no. And so he didn't say anything else. And a couple of days later, I got an invitation to come out for an interview. So I went to the guy in employment office. He said, well, we're not hiring anybody now because we're building our plants. We have lots of contracts. There's going to be lots of work later. We said we don't have any, we're not hiring right now at all because we just don't have any place to put them. But he says, there's a lot of pressure on this application, so he says, we're going to put you on anyway. So that's the way I got on there. So then I worked at Boeing's then for a couple of years. And then my dad got sick back in South Dakota, and so then I had to quit the job there and go back there. And so.
And what was your dad sick with? What was your dad's illness?
What was wrong with him?
Yeah, what was wrong with him?
Oh, he had cancer.
What?
He was full of cancer.
Okay.
That was in, we got married in June 27th, and they didn't want to stop our wedding by making us stop and come back there, so they waited till after we were married. Well, then we had to go back, and he wanted me to come back and run the farm then. So he died then in the first part of August. Yeah, he was pretty bad. One time we got back there, he was just nothing but skin and bone. Yep.
Now, how old is your dad? Do you remember?
About 6 foot.
Well, how old was he?
He was 60 years old when he died.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then his dad also died from Frank.
Frank was about 62 or 4 or something like that, but they both died of chewing tobacco.
So your dad chewed tobacco?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, both of them did. That was a thing to do in those days. When they grew up, everybody smoked or everybody chewed tobacco. Yep.
So now, did Frank move up to South Dakota to the farm, or?
Yeah, they were farming in eastern Iowa, near Cedar Rapids.
Yeah.
And so they decided to move out to South Dakota. Anyway, he had some cattle by that time. He had accumulated some cattle. He started the shorthorn cattle.
Oh, yeah.
And then they moved up there in 1902.
Okay.
And my dad said that Frank never would have stayed there if he'd lived very much longer. He said he wanted a ranch. He would have gone out to Ree Heights or Harold or out in that country there, west of.
Out in the Black Hills, or out into the Black Hills.
Not that far. He just wanted in the grassland there east of the river. Yeah, he wanted a ranch.
Yeah.
You know, I was watching one of these documentaries here a couple of months ago about ranches in western Montana.
Yeah.
There were 3 ranches there, and they had probably thousands of head of cattle, all black. And 3 different ranches. They were all kind of a family together, and but they had thousands of acres of rangeland there. And one of the ranchers' name was Earl Stuckey.
Really?
Yeah. And I haven't talked to Earl since I saw that, and I'm going to ask him.
I didn't know you were ranching in West.
Maybe he has an uncle out there named Earl Stuckey.
He just hasn't told us about it.
He's one of my brother-in-laws. Happens to be the same name as that rancher.
Yeah, that's funny. Where are your your Indian head collection? Remember your Indian arrowheads that in that wood case that you found on the farm?
What about it?
Well, I was just wondering where it was, so we could show it.
Where?
Do you know
where
where
was
it
the
is?
farm?
No, the Indian arrowheads.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I got some up there somewhere. Now they're over here, I guess.
Oh, here's the other picture.
Oh,
I was talking about. We could check.
Yeah,